All right, hello everyone, and thank you for tuning in once again to the Black Box Podcast, BBOR, Black Box Online Radio, coming to you from West Virginia. Well, now on this channel, we've covered a lot of true crime cases, but we've also been talking about the upcoming presidential election in 2020 as sort of our secondary theme, and I spent about 2 months avoiding that subject for no particular reason, just kind of got focused on some more of the true crime cases. But lately, we did a couple uploads about the upcoming presidential election, so I thought we'd get back into that swing for just a little bit more, and then we'll get back to some other stuff. I don't really ever want this channel to be too one note where we're only talking about one thing. But yeah, we do have a lot of heat going on with the election. I see Kamala Harris is promoting her book right now. Kamala Harris, the senator from California, is someone whom I've never been that big a fan of. She does have a career. She has work experience. I mean, she was the Attorney General of the state of California. I mean, she definitely seems like she has kind of made her way into the political establishment. She is the junior senator of the state of California as well, where it's Dianne Feinstein. It would be the senior. But I just don't think Kamala Harris is a very engaging public speaker. I don't think that she energizes the crowds very well. Um, I'm just not that enthralled with her, and I don't think she would be the best nominee for the Democrats to put up to take on Donald Trump. Now, when I've been putting up political uploads on this channel, I really would say that overall, I mean, I think people are somewhat objective, especially when I talk about a candidate like Andrew Yang, who is, of course, the venture capitalist who is talking all about universal basic income. I mean, people really want to think about that in the future. And the reception that I've received from a lot of people regarding my uploads on Andrew Yang doesn't seem too bad, but when I've been critical of Elizabeth Warren and Tulsi Gabbard, I don't see the best reaction. But the honest truth is, I do like Tulsi Gabbard, and I think that she should kind of get more into the mix. What I was thinking about last night was Tulsi Gabbard would be somebody who would be an excellent vice president, not president yet. If I recall, like during the time of the election, like going through the campaigns, she would only be 36 years old. And, that's a very young age to go into this. I mean, somebody like William Jennings Bryan, way back when, was that the election of 1896 or something? He was 36 years old. He traveled 18,000 miles of track, going up and down the railways for 18,000 miles worth of travel. And he just came up short. And it's just like, I think that something like that would really happen to Tulsi Gabbard if she were to run at the top of the ticket. But I do think she's a remarkable individual. I mean, like, she's a very multi sided. And I really think that that's what the Democrats really need to be looking for. I've said this, and I'll say it again. The Democrats need to have a unifying candidate. They need to have somebody that can just unite this massive party that they have. Because right now, who are they really going to look toward? I mean, you could say Nancy Pelosi or somebody like her, but Nancy Pelosi's not going to be running for president. I mean, that's almost just like out of the question. Let alone Nancy Pelosi is 78 years old. I don't think she would ever want to run for the presidency. But the biggest thing that we have to bear in mind with something like that is who is the leader of the Democratic Party? I did two uploads on this channel when I was talking about Tim Ryan, the congressman from Ohio, I believe the 12th district in Ohio, formerly of the 17th district. And he seems to be somebody who has a lot of ideas, but he's not so extreme in either direction. Like, he's not a center Democrat, and he's definitely not like, a sort of conservative Democrat like Joe Manchin, but at the same time, he's also not as far left as Bernie Sanders. I thought that he might actually have the characteristics that could unify the Democratic Party. But when it comes to somebody like Tulsi Gabbard, I'm not 100% sure that she could, but I think that it's a start. Once again, I think Tulsi Gabbard would be an excellent vice presidential candidate. Now, another person that people have talked about being on the bottom half of the ticket is a certain individual from the state of Texas named Beto O'Rourke. And of course, he's the congressman from El Paso. A lot of people want Beto O'Rourke to be the Democratic nominee. I think he would be a fine vice presidential candidate, someone to be on the bottom half of the ticket. Why not put Beto O'Rourke up for the presidency? Well, the thing is, he lost. That's all I can really say. He lost to Ted Cruz. I was pretty much predicting that he was going to lose that one. I thought it would be very close, but he would lose by just a little bit. And I mean, that depends on your definition of a little bit about the sort of end result. But the thing that we have to remember with this stuff is Beto was fighting a very hard election in a sort of a Republican dominated state. He came up short, though. I would say if Beto O'Rourke had defeated Ted Cruz, he would be a shoo in as a future presidential nominee. A shoo in. But the thing is, he lost. Beto did not win Ted Cruz. And why do you want to put up a loser to challenge Donald Trump? I mean, if you couldn't win that Senate election, why do you want him to be your nominee? As vice president, I would say that that's definitely possible, and then his career can, expand on that. But people have been calling into question, Beto's voting record. They're saying that he's actually voted against a lot of the things that the progressives would be in favor of. I don't know too much about that. I was just listening to the radio the other day, and they brought that up. It's not that I dislike Beto O'Rourke, but I mean, I think a lot of people aren't exactly giving him enough credit. I mean, so many people say that he just came out of nowhere. He just exploded on the scene. He just rose out of nothing. That's not true. Beto O'Rourke was a three-term congressman from Ohio. I mean, he ran three times for the congressional seat. Did I say Ohio? He's from El Paso. I mean, El Paso, Texas. He's a three-term congressman from El Paso. He ran three times and he won three times, and that's what happened. And before that, he was involved with the state and local politics, so he didn't come out of nowhere. And he does have more experience than people are giving him credit for. He also has some baggage that he's carrying with him, such as a previous, some two previous arrests, I believe, like one even for DUI. But I mean, that's been sort of resolved. And it's like nobody's perfect. That's on the one hand, but at the same time, the Republicans are going to slaughter him about that. My issue with Beto O'Rourke is that I feel he's too general. I feel that he has that stuff that I was saying about Kamala Harris, a little bit lackluster. I don't listen to Beto O'Rourke and feel this kind of just overwhelming sense of optimism and passion. It's like, but I'm kind of in the few on that. I think he can energize the crowd somewhat well, but I don't see it. To be honest, whatever sort of appeal people are talking about with Beto O'Rourke, I'm not quite seeing it. So we also have to recognize that this is a very, very big playing field, and I've noticed that John Delaney, the representative from Maryland, in in Iowa, he just kind of assembled his Iowa chair and his Iowa committee completely, and he was talking about it on Twitter. He is very active on Twitter, and I'm like, this guy is getting like no feedback at all. I mean, he'll still have a tweet up for 7 hours, and maybe 12 people will like it. And I'm just like, I like John Delaney's tweets myself, just because I was like, oh, I feel bad that more people aren't doing that. He's definitely not making a lot of noise. But what's the aim with a guy like John Delaney? First, I would say he gave a very nice TED talk at the TEDx conference. I want to say Pennsylvania Avenue, but his TED talk was kind of nice. It was about, housing, when he was saying that if we want to lower healthcare costs in America, we should try and improve the housing conditions for many people who are in low income areas, so they're exposed to fewer kinds of contaminants, fewer sorts of, well, anything in the house that could make you sick, so people would get sick less often. That's how we reduce healthcare costs. Tim Ryan's also talked about that a lot with the Real Food Revolution. That's the title of his book about, organic lifestyles. We did a whole upload on that, so I won't rehash too much about Tim Ryan. But when it comes to John Delaney, I think he's just doing this for fun. I think this was just a plan. I think he just wanted to put his name out there and just for the experience, to be honest. John Delaney is the sixth richest person in the entire United States Congress. One, two, three, four, five, six. He is the sixth richest person in the whole Congress. So he's financially secure. He was once again, a three-term congressman from the state of Maryland. I think that he is just kind of doing this as a personal ambition sort of thing. I mean, if he were to become president, I'm sure he would want to, but it's like, my expectation for John Delaney is that he is not genuinely trying to win. It's like he's just kind of doing this because he wants to, because he's done everything else in his life. He's already, mega rich. He's already been a congressman. He's done it all. Now he wants to do this. It's just personal ambition. But, we've talked a lot about Democrats, but some other things that we've talked about on this channel have been this growing party called the Libertarians. And the Libertarians are not really sure who they're going to be putting up yet. We've talked about Adam Kokesh, we talked about Daryl W. Perry, we've talked about even the possibility of Rand Paul running on the Libertarian ticket. I did a whole upload on Rand Paul running as a Libertarian, and I think this is just something that's going to be coming up every election cycle from time to time. People are going to sort of be like, why not put Rand Paul up? You know, he has some of the sort of heart and soul of his father, but at the same time, you know, he is not so extreme. He's not somebody like Daryl W. Perry or Adam Kokesh who want to dissolve the federal government in its entirety. He's even less extreme than his own father, Ron Paul, when it comes to the constitutionalism and such. But the thing is, Rand Paul is someone who's been a career Republican, and the Libertarian Party is getting frustrated. They're just like, why are they just bringing in Republicans at the last minute and calling them libertarians and, you know, just using them to attract votes? Gary Johnson was a governor as a Republican. Rand Paul is a senator as a Republican. Gary Johnson's running mate, William Weld, was also a Republican. He was not a career libertarian. And there's so many libertarians that are actually running through the Libertarian Convention. I mean, look on the stage last time, John McAfee, Daryl Perry, Mark Allen Feldman, Austin Peterson is a growing star in the Libertarian Party, but we're not quite sure if he's going to be running for president yet. Also, Kevin McCormick from Arizona might make another appearance for the Libertarians, but we don't really know what's going to happen with them too much. I purchased a book for about $3. I got it used, but I got a copy of Daryl W. Perry's The Anarcho Teachings of Yeshua, and I'm debating whether or not to do another upload on his candidacy for the presidency. I would like to go through some of the ideas on that, but to be honest, I mean, I don't really know if that's something that I should be putting out on the channel in terms of popularity, but I encourage Daryl Perry to run again if he were ever to hear something like this. I would encourage him to run for the presidency again because I think it's good for the Libertarian Party to have a variety of perspectives. But when we want to talk about some other things, I might do an upload in the future on Bill Bays, who's going to be running for the Prohibition Party. That's right, Prohibition. They are against alcohol. They want to ban alcohol, and they came back after sort of a hiatus. During the last election, the last presidential election, I recall they got about 6,000 votes. Bill Bays was the vice presidential nominee for the Prohibition Party back in 2016, and he might be running again this year in 2020. But the Prohibition Party is very, very different. You know, it's like they say so many things that I like talking about, you know, freedom and being able to think what you want and, you know, accepting people who are of different spiritual backgrounds, as well as world peace. And they're saying all these things that are just absolutely beautiful. Then they say that they're just completely opposed to gay marriage. They don't want anyone to drink alcohol. And, you know, just going with some of these sort of kind of old-fashioned mindsets that probably were back from the Prohibition Party of the 1920s or something like that. But I would really like to just kind of explore that candidacy more. That's something that's just a pure fascination. I'm well aware that these political uploads are not so popular, but the thing is that I can't stay away from them because I just find them, it's just a subject that I want to know more about. I mean, the entire presidency is something that it's been a subject of personal, almost obsession for me. Like, I mean, I used to say that my absolute favorite TV show was History Channel's The Presidents. Like, you know, that would be something that I would just I watched the whole thing twice, and, you know, that's very general, but at the same time, it's like, I don't know, it's just something that's been kind of, once again, personal fascination. So that's sort of why I get so curious about what's going to be happening in the 2020 presidential election, about who's going to be challenging Donald Trump. Furthermore, when it comes to running for president, now is perhaps the most exciting time to run for president in the history of the United States of America. Donald Trump, you know, was not a politician. He was, I mean, like, he was a celebrity businessman who ran for the presidency and won. That's like just setting off the power grid for all these other things going on. People like Andrew Yang, you know, now seem somewhat, well, people are actually going to be listening to him in a different way. In the past, we had a lot of business people running for the presidency. Herman Cain in 2011, Carly Fiorina 2015-16, and some guy named Détros Perot. But now people are sort of taking someone like that a little bit more seriously. Also, when it comes to third parties, we have the Humanity Party, and I've done about 3 or 4 uploads on them. 2 of them were just on their spokesperson, Christopher Nemelka. But the Humanity Party is now putting out a plan for, well, let me see if I can get this right, FBLN. That's the 5 basic necessities of life. They want to provide every person in the country with food and healthy food, not junk food, healthy food, clothing, shelter, education, and medicine. And they have this sort of plan to do it through universal basic income via voucher system, and they want to pay for it with a consumption tax of 20%. I think that they're going to be having some ideas that are going to be expressed through other candidates. I don't think the Humanity Party would ever become too big because they're just not that popular and they don't really have any sort of support from above. They'll get a channel like Black Box Radio to talk about them, but they won't get anyone to kind of reach out from, well, the current political establishment. But, I love hearing what these third parties have to say. I love hearing what these just different perspectives are, even if I think that they're somewhat far out. I mean, because things with the Humanity Party, we talked about that. I mean, I even did 2 uploads on them called Evil Ideas and More Evil Ideas, when they want all people to think in the same way, and they want to just spread their platform to the entire earth, a one world government and one belief system for every person on the planet Earth. But that's why we have, this type of podcast so we can discuss these subjects, because we need to just evaluate ideas and information. And this place, Black Box Radio, is one of the places when any subject is fair game. Now, when it comes to some other things, I talked about Webster Tarpley on one upload recently on this channel. One of the more entertaining ones for me to record was to talking about Webster Tarpley and the Tax Wall Street Party. He is the most prominent member of the Tax Wall Street Party. They have a very simple platform. They want to 1% Wall Street sales tax, nationalize the Federal Reserve, and they want to have a sort of $5 trillion infrastructure plan that's going to create 30 million living wage jobs and get to full employment. And they're all about reinstating the kind of FDR policies that are going to be sort of like pro-labor, if you'd want to call it that. They often get called socialists, but really they're just, they identify as capitalist / the American system of political economy. But I digress from them. Let's talk a little bit more about the Democrats, because there are just so many names on the list. When it comes to the Democrats, I'm not impressed with Eric Holder. I'm not impressed with Cory Booker. I'm not impressed with Kamala Harris, and I don't think that those 3 would contribute much to the discussion. In the past, on the most recent presidential upload, we were talking about Elizabeth Warren, and I still have to say it once, and I'll say it again, and it might not be popular, and it might not be what people want to hear, but Elizabeth Warren I don't think that she's the right person to take on Donald Trump. I don't think that she is going to do the best job. I think that the Democrats could definitely get a better nominee. I don't even really dislike her too much. I do think that she's being kind of put on a pedestal by the media and by the Democratic critics. I definitely don't think that she is the right person to put up against Donald Trump. And we've talked about the other people that I like more, like Tim Ryan, Tulsi Gabbard, Andrew Yang. Once again, I wouldn't want Andrew Yang as the on top of the ticket, but I think there's a certain genuine credibility to him. Oh yeah, and there's also this guy named Bernie Sanders who might come back and run, and Joe Biden. We haven't even talked about the superstars yet of the Democratic Party. Or are they going to be taking on Donald Trump? Well, we don't really know what's going to happen yet, but Bernie's numbers are growing. Bernie Sanders is somebody who is reaching more and more people as we speak, and he's connecting with a large fan base. He's energizing the youth. It's sort of like when Ron Paul ran for president in 2008, and then when he ran back in 2012, he did the same thing. He energized the youth, and now Bernie Sanders is sort of doing that again. But we don't necessarily know what's going to happen. And there might even be someone who's going to come on the game that we haven't really talked about in the past. But The point of this upload is just to say kind of just some basic commentary about the presidential election. We have a lot of Democrats that are going to be in the mix, as well as third parties that are trying to put their ideas out there, whether they want to sort of ban alcohol and gay marriage, or they want to pass a Wall Street sales tax and nationalize the Federal Reserve, or they want all humans to think the same way and just have one world government for the planet Earth, the Humanity Party and their stuff. It's like, I like talking about different types of ideas, even if I don't agree with all of it. But anyway, that's my just sort of little rant about the presidential election, and tomorrow, hopefully, we'll get back to some new stuff. That's all for now. Until